And we got
Yep,
some
yep.
really cool topics, pardon me, for tonight. I got to ask you, what the hell is Schroeder's box? And what's a camera doing with it?
Basically, either I mistyped it or you misspoke it. One of the two. Either way, it makes it more funny. Basically, we're talking about Schrodinger's box. And for those of you who are not familiar with Schrodinger's box is
Time out.
the.
Time
Oh,
out.
please.
You were not throwing me under the bus with this one. You typed out Schroeder's box.
Did I really? Okay, good. Okay, no,
Yeah,
I want to make sure that was my fault, not yours. Yeah,
I'm gonna trick. I'm gonna trick
yeah,
you as
yeah.
well over that
No,
one.
no, no, no. What was really funny was at first I thought it was actually spell checking me to Schrodinger, and I was like, "There's no way that this iPad knows how to spell Schrodinger." But anyway, the point is that the Schrodinger's box experiment is the classic experiment that you've probably all heard about, that where the cat is in the box and there is a radioactive element in the box that has a 50-50 chance of decaying. And if it does decay, then poison is released and the cat dies. And if the doesn't decay, then the cat lives. And the hypothesis is that essentially, until you look inside the box, the cat is neither alive or dead. Because it's only when you actually can look inside the box and discover the cat's state that you actually are aware of the overall state of the system. This has years and years of debate, books, TV shows, a lot of YouTube, let me tell you. But the reason why we're talking about this tonight, and the only reason why I'm boring some of you with this, because this isn't directly a UFO topic, is because of how cool this is, and because of how often we have talked about entanglement and spooky action at a distance and all these concepts. And so basically what it comes down to is that a group at MIT were able to cool down a system to a low enough temperature that they were actually able to witness the moment where classical became quantum, or when quantum became classical. There's a transition point, just like you have a transition point in when something's melting or it's water and it turns to steam. There's this transition point, and we've never, ever been able to see this transition point. Now, what makes it so interesting about this is that what they actually saw in the experiment is that when the particle was in its superposition state, essentially, it became an actual cloud, an actual mist is my word, but it became a cloud type form. And the way to think about this is that the cloud holds in it all the probabilities that exist for that particle, right? So all the possible things that could happen to it exist in that space. And then at the point where reality sticks and you're now trying to get to a particle, what they witnessed was a freaking tornado. They actually witnessed, and if you think about it, it makes flawless sense, right? Because nature is all about least path of resistance, the most efficient way of doing things. And that kind of funnel shape, we see repeated all over the place. Black holes, your toilet, all over the place, because it's an incredibly efficient way to move stuff from one plane to another, right? And so they were actually able to witness this cloud state, and then as it actually started to form the vortices that then would basically take that cloud and bring it down to the point where it's an actual particle that you can see. And then it's not that they saw this entire process, but what they were able to see was these vortexes form in the cloud, allowing them to now realize that essentially that vortex formation is part of this process. And this is a big deal. Like this is really exciting stuff.
All right, very cool.
Yeah, you have to trust me on that, Dave. But it is really a big deal, because this has been like one of the biggest black boxes in science, is seeing this transition. And if they're right, and there's still a possibility they're not, but if they're right and they're actually witnessing this transition, then that is, not only is it a big deal from a discovery point of view, but it's a big deal from a practical application of this technology later. Like these are the sort of realizations that can spring a whole new industries.
Okay, let's get to some UFOs. and and realistically,
Hey, I didn't talk about isotopes. All right, didn't mention
I'm just
isotopes once.
I was surprised. I was surprised. All right. Other shoe drops on human sensors at Skinwalker
Yes.
Ranch.
So I apologize on this one. I don't have any good data to show any of you, except for me to recommend that you read this new book that recently came out called Skinwalkers. It's Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Oh, bugger, I have it written down somewhere. Skinwalkers, the latest book that just came out, and where you have to kind of attach another data point is if you go back to some of the earlier days of Skinwalker Ranch, what one of the things that got reported that was considered, well, at least me personally, I considered to be extremely weird, was the essentially while people were on Skinwalker Ranch, if they had an event, if they had any sort of interaction with anything that was weird, one of the things they had to do was they had to give some biological samples immediately, like body fluid, and essentially send that to a lab in Las Vegas, right? And so originally this was a little bit of a mystery as to why on earth they were doing this, right? Well, now in this new book, what Lukatsky, if I'm pronouncing that right, I hope I am, what he covers in this book is that what they discovered was that the human immune system is one of the best sensors they'd ever discovered. And that you can tell a boatload of stuff from your immune system, including things like certain types of magnetic fields. I mean, you can discern. I was shocked how much you can discern from your immune system. And so now the other shoe drops, and now we understand why they were asking everyone who had any sort of event to send their fluids off to Las Vegas, because the nice thing about doing the immune system was all you needed to test it was a blood sample. It's not an invasive procedure. All you need is a blood sample. So once you have a blood sample, you can do the full battery of work that you need to do to get the results you're looking for. And so what they were doing was that they were using them all as human sensors by monitoring their immune systems. And if you think about it, this not only is super interesting, but there's an kind of an odd correlation possibly in that, so many of the side effects that we see from contact end up revolving around immune system issues, right? And so it'd be interesting to see if there ends up being some relationship to that in the future. We'll see.
How is that going to affect any sort of testing at Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, it's not that it's going to affect the testing. What it is it finally opens the kind of opens the door to us and helps us understand what they were doing and why they were doing it, right? It explains why they were able to get away with perhaps not having as many sensors in the field. It's the reason why they were. It was a very weird thing that they were asking people to do body fluid, deposits into a container and send it to a lab in Las Vegas. I mean, I'm sorry, like even if you're at Skinwalker Ranch, which is, let's face it, not the most normal place in the world, that had to seem damn weird, right? I mean, it's like, you want me to do which, right? I mean, I don't know. I personally,
But it is understandable though, John. So we got about a minute to go, because if there's any sort of radiation coming through, they're going to want to test it.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. But I mean, there are other ways the body will show that. But no, you're right. I mean, you absolutely have to appreciate the fact that they cared about the safety and that they were. I completely agree. But what we've learned now is that the human immune system was specifically being leveraged as the most sensitive tool they had for measuring effects of the phenomenon.
Last weekend, there was a documentary created by Lou Elizondo, or on Lou Elizondo, that has been highly critical of him. And This has taken the UFO world by storm. There's a lot of
Yes.
people who are absolutely praising the creator of this, and there are people who are absolutely berating him. I mean, it's about a 50-50 split right now.
And it's so hard because there's so many shades of each one of them. Because you take me for example, and I I will viciously viciously defend the voice of a dissenter. Always. People should always be welcomed to offer dissenting views. There should always be a safe place for that. And if that film had been done differently, I'm not even going to place judgment as to how, but if that film had been done differently, it could have been a really valuable asset to the community, right? I mean, like anytime someone does a good, thoughtful research project on anyone or anything, it educates all of us. Unfortunately, this one just, I mean, execution just was just challenging.
Well, I think what we need to explain to people, especially our radio audience,
Apologize. Yes.
who may not fully understand this documentary, some people are calling it a piece that is a complete hit piece on Luis Elizondo and his credibility, where the creator went as far as doxing his family members, his wife, his children, which hasn't sat well within the community. The creator of this also, asked some very, very tough and pertinent questions. Where I draw the line with a little bit of it is the fact that the creator of it really has come across. I don't think, let me put it this way. Let me rephrase here for a second. I don't think there was a lot of journalistic integrity. Now, granted, the person is not a journalist. Okay, he's a UFO uh, aficionado who enjoys and loves this topic. Let's be real with that right off the bat. His opinions may differ from many in the UFO community, and I think he allowed his own personal bias to really come out and play in this documentary. Now, when I watch a documentary, I want to see both sides of the ledger. There was no interviews. His research on a lot of it was pretty good. He was quite assumptive on many other of the pieces. When I say assumptive about whether or not Luis Elizondo actually served in the military because his records aren't public. But I mean, it's the same thing as I used this example talking to a person in the UFO field earlier today. When the Navy SEALs took out Osama bin Laden, we don't know their records. We don't even know who it was. That's the type of team Luis Elizondo, we are led to believe, was a part of. But that being said, Elizondo is a polarizing figure. He spins a lot of words that don't provide a lot of answers. Yes, he encourages people to read between the lines, but many people struggle with that. And I believe that needed to be called out. Even though I am, if I were to say, am I a supporter or not of Elizondo, I would say I am a supporter of his. All right, because I've talked to the man privately. But where I am very concerned with is this point. We, as Spaced Out Radio, are currently talking to our lawyer regarding our interview and portions of our interview being shown in this documentary without any consent or knowledge of it happening. And I'm a pretty easy guy. If anybody wants to use our stuff, as long as it's in good taste, you're more than welcome to use it. Okay? You're more than welcome to use it. But we were not contacted. We were not informed. we were not given the opportunity to say yes or no. And one of the pieces that they showed, there was actually on our screen, because for our radio audience, we also broadcast on YouTube Live as well. And a lot of times we'll put people's names up in the chat room for either a comment or what they call a super chat, which is a donation to the show. And he actually put one of our listeners' names in the documentary when their name came up on the screen. And that person is very upset about it. Now, it wasn't just Spaced Out Radio that he used interviews from without permission under the name of fair use. He also used it from the Black Vault and John Greenwald, who never has come out publicly saying he's never given permission for anybody to use that in a documentary style. He contacted good friend of this show, Thomas Fessler from Disclosure Tonight, asking if he could use clips from Fessler, and Fessler said no. I would not want that to be a part of it. He also contacted another good friend who was just on our roundtable, Luis Jimenez, from the Unbiased UFO, that's you, John, from the Unidentified Celebrity Review, very popular YouTube channel. And they used clips from interviews there. And Mr. Jimenez said he never granted permission. He's pretty upset about it and wondering how to do it. The reason why we're wondering is because we are all getting contacted by people asking if we are in support of this documentary.
Of course.
And it puts all of us in a very precarious position, because most people are going to assume that we gave him that information to use from our show.
Absolutely.
Which we did not. Now, the creator of this is calling it, under the United States government, fair use, where he can take clips from any type of news source or podcast source and use it in his documentary. The problem that he has is on YouTube, if the video is flagged as not being for public usage, then you can put a strike against that person and against the video and the channel. So this goes way beyond just making a documentary about someone, John.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing, is there's so many angles to this. I mean, it's like, could you argue that evidence as to Lou's military record should be fair ground in such a documentary? I would argue yes. At least if it's done respectfully and it's done with integrity, that's a reasonable thing to investigate, right? You start, trying to find out, what my daughter's name is and what school she goes to. Boy, man, you've crossed lines, and it's like, and it's hard because it's like, I know it gets difficult when people are trying to do what they consider to be credibility or integrity checks on people. They're trying to weigh what kind of person someone is, right? But boy, man, and it's just so, and that's a hard thing. It's it's like like if I had, in a perfect world, I would want to find some way to shut this down without ever putting any fear or doubt or concern in anyone else that's ever going to produce something like this, that theirs would also get shut down, because I like the idea of what he did, and I believe in the idea of what he did. I think his execution of it is not personally what I would do, but that's my challenge with it. My challenge is with his execution. It's not with the concept of a severely dissenting voice,
I'm not going to comment on the video, but I am going to comment on a few things that do involve us, because the creator of this documentary stated a few times that Mr. Elizondo only goes on shows that he feels safe on. We had two of the most journalistic interviews with him. And we didn't ask the same old questions that everyone else did. We were highly commended within many of the UFO community, and including one of, or a couple of people very close to Elizondo's inner circle, literally said that Lou stated to them point blank that he was sweating a little bit by the questions we were asking. All right. And
that part I hadn't heard. That's cool.
We went at him.
Yeah, now, no, but very respectfully.
But here's the thing, though. You can ask a tough question without sounding like a meathead.
Yes.
All right? It's all in the way you push it. I've had people ask me point blank, how come you aren't like pointing your finger, yelling at the person? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? When you can say it subtly and get the same point across, and probably get a better answer that's less defensive.
Yep.
Right? Number two, in that documentary, it was stated that we, as favorite shows of Mr. Elizondo, provide questions to him. Okay? I have it on record denying a TTSA request on an email stating that I would not provide questions to any member of the To the Stars Academy because I am a journalist and I am a professional radio host. And I will not do that. And I said, well, we're not going to take the interview then. I have that email. All right. So the idea that we were asked, or it was said in that documentary, that we were providing, not just us, but every show that he goes on provides him with the fluff ball questions, is not true. If the creator would have come up to me and asked me about what I know about it, I would have told him what I know about Mr. Elizondo. I would have. But I was not asked. All right. Lou Elizondo's been on this show twice. I've talked to him 3 times on the telephone, and I've sent him a total of about 8 text messages. That's my entire life's conversation with Elizondo. Do I call him a friend? No. I don't have any friends in this field. All right. When it comes to people who we interview of that ilk.
Yep.
Okay. It's different if it's a Jon Hudson or a Nicole Sackich or somebody along those lines, or the crypto guru, the late Butch Witkowski, Varla Ventura, Geraldine Orozco, or anybody like that. That's different. Okay. But when they get into a certain area, there's no friendship the minute this microphone here goes on. It's like a hockey game or a sports game. Okay. Your best friend may be playing for a different team. And while you're playing against each other, that friendship is put aside. And it's time to work. That's what we do. So there was some inconsistencies there that didn't make sense. And I didn't appreciate that, because when you lump things together like that, there's no truth to it, especially when you are making assumptive sentences about it. Now, there's other people out there who are supporting this who are saying, well, they're all pissed off. They're all angry. I'm not angry. I just wanted to be contacted if you were going to use our information. That's what I wanted. Have the common decency and the professionalism to use our information.
But I will add to that and I worried this is what they're referring to, and that is that I personally have been rather disturbed by some of the rhetoric that I've been seeing from people as a result of what happened. Some of the things that are being said about the creator of that documentary, innuendos and veiled threats and so forth. Very, very
right.
childish stuff. Very childish
that's
stuff.
Not right.
And what's sad is that Like, don't let people don't let people bring that out in you. You know, like, we're all better than that. It's like, I mean, and you know, it makes it all so distasteful. And now I understand the military guys, right? The military guys have their ethics and their code, so they want to make comments about that. That's fine. But for anyone not in the military making that kind of rhetoric, it just makes me nauseous.
Rob Heatherly from Disclosure Tonight, who's a very good guy. He is a disabled military veteran, and him and Lou have talked quite a bit, behind the scenes. You know, there's a respect and a camaraderie there that
Yeah.
a bond, John, that you will never know. I will never know.
Yep.
I'm not even going to push it.
Yep.
And the
No
way
problem.
Rob has come out and actively defended Lou as a veteran, I think that is great. When you are accusing somebody of stolen valor without any proof, that's a dangerous precedent to make, number one. But I mean, the document here, but here's the thing that does not allow the UFO community to come out and threaten
Hell
and
no.
the person who is making this documentary. It's childish, it's corrupt. All right, there are too many people in this UFO world who look at Lou as some sort of demigod, okay, that is going to lead the righteous path to UFO disclosure. We do have to realize, whether we like it or not, Lou is a spook. He's a spy. He's counterintelligence. Their job, their entire job, is to manipulate people and coerce people to get what they want. He may not be doing that to the UFO community, but he may. And until Lou comes clean, whether it's with his book or whether it's through more public interviews where he answers tougher questions rather than pushing everything to his NDA, which is the answers we all want, there is always going to be some question about Elizondo. And as long as those questions are fair and the information is point counterpoint, people do need to start asking Luis Elizondo more proper, pertinent questions that need to be asked for the community. Because here's the thing, John, there is a massive, massive difference between confirmation of UFOs and disclosure. And we're not going to get to squeeze either if we don't have the proper information.
Yep. And
You're
let
not.
me add that on Elizondo's part, I guarantee you that he feels the same way. I've been in interviews where they've avoided all the hard questions, and it irritates me to absolutely no end. I want those hard questions. So, yeah, so I completely agree with you.
Right? And Lou knows he needs to answer those questions. He wants to answer those questions. He
Sometimes they're
cannot
fun.
answer. You know, I mean, think about it. What would happen? And we've said this on the show before. What would happen if Lou Elizondo came out and stated, "I've seen aliens"? Maybe he has with his job. Maybe he has not. All right. But doxing a family,
Oh, jeez.
okay, not cool. Using people's copywritten material under a fair use, even though YouTube, who stores all our video programming, has rules against that. That's not
And
fair.
also to use the content in a way that was clearly against the wishes of the content creator. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's just, um, just like I said, there are so many aspects to this that you could dive into as a really interesting learning experience. Unfortunately, the way it's all played out together, it's turned into a very distasteful process, and I'm very concerned about the amount of retaliatory rhetoric that's occurring. I think it needs to end now.
John, I thank you for sticking around for the extra long Unbiased UFO report. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you again.